Thank you for everybody attending this meeting. It's the shared
Councillor Tomlinson.
That's very kind of you. Is that seconded?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So move on to the vote by show of hands, please. All those in favour? And that's clearly carried. Thank you for that. Do we have a proposer for Vice Chair? Yeah. Lots of proposers. Councillor Corn. Councillor Corn proposes. Councillor Bradley. That's seconded. Seconded by Councillor Alty. And again, all those in favour? Thank you. So now we'll open the meeting officially. So just for everybody, to remind everybody, we are being live streamed on YouTube, but due to regulations, only those members physically present are able to vote. When you are speaking, please speak towards the microphone so that everyone can hear you, and do not obstruct your mouth to ensure that anybody lip reading can continue to do so. If anyone is having any issues with the equipment, please let Democratic Services know. Some housekeeping: we're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Could you now please ensure that your mobile phones are either switched to silent or off, and I will do exactly the same. Okay, so we'll move on to the agenda proper. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Margaret France, and we have Councillor Hasina Khan in attendance as substitute for her.
Okay, I understand that Councillor Wilson may be dialing in from that there London. I can't see him as
Just text
yet.
him.
Okay, so we'll look forward to him joining us when he gets the chance. Remind members about the usual notification about declarations of interest. Does anyone want to declare any interest at this stage? No. Okay. So moving on, minutes of the meeting on Tuesday the 25th of March. Can I ask those present to agree that those meetings are an accurate record of what took place? Councillor Smith, thank you. And that's seconded. All those in favour? And so they are agreed. Thank you. So we move on then to item number 5, the Shared Services Monitoring Report, the report of the Director of Change and Delivery.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a fairly standard report that we tend to bring to this committee, where we highlight the progress and the performance of the existing shared services teams. So I'm just going to run through some particular sort of highlights from the teams that we've got through phase 1, 2, 3, and then the opportunistic sharing that has followed that onwards from sort of 2024 on. So phase 1 teams include people policy partnerships, finance, which predates phase 1. Democratic Services, legal, procurement and audit and risk. So essentially sort of the corporate centre services. So we've had some success within finance in terms of developing staff into the Director of Finance role. Across people policy and partnerships, we have been awarded a iNetwork award for our recruitment strategy. It also does say here that we've been shortlisted for an MJ award. That's actually for the Partnership Business Intelligence Platform, which again is a project from this team. Communications and Visitor Economy have recently undertaken a service review and they're really looking around the focus on our sort of tourism offer. Dem Services have delivered a new member portal at Chorley, and that's due to be rolled out at South Ribble as well. Legal and Procurement have implemented the 2025 Procurement Act, and across audit and risk, they've actually been commended recently by their professional body. Phase 2 services were our customer facing functions, our customer services and then digital services. We've got a highlight on customer services further on in this report. And digital services have now completed the joint digital strategy across both of the councils. So there's some highlights here around the digitisation of paper-based processes and the implementation of a number of different systems.
I find it very, very difficult to hear. Whether it's
Do you want to just bend the mic a bit?
Yeah, is that better? Yeah, okay. And then property and development projects. So part of the development of this service has been the implementation of the new system, so the civic property management system. And then in operational assets, we've recently had a service review, and that's resulted in a number of changes in terms of the way that service is delivered. We then have, following the specific phases of shared services that were agreed, we decided that we would go through opportunistic sharing. So where there were opportunities to share services, we then shared pest control, and that moved from an outsourced service at Chorley to a shared service across Chorley and South Ribble. Building control has been shared since 2024, and there are continuing challenges with building control. I don't think we're going to shy away from that. But actually, these are to do with the introduction of the Building Safety Act. And through shared services, we do have a stronger position than we would do if we were two councils operating individually. And we also decided to share the management of street scene and waste. The operational teams remain completely separate, but the full management team is shared. And that was implemented in 2024 into 2020, beginning of 2025. I was going to stop there just in case there's any questions on the phase 1, 2, 3 and opportunistic sharing.
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for compiling the report. I think it just it reminds everybody the breadth of shared services now right across the councils, and the successes that has brought. When's the MJ Awards? Does anyone know when that is?
Friday.
Oh, great. Okay, so hopefully we'll have some exciting news on Friday. But no, I think, as I say, it is a welcome reminder of just exactly what's going on and the progress that we've made over the years. That being said, I'll throw it open to questions or comments from members of the committee. Councillor Walton, your light's on. I didn't see you indicate. Do you want to speak?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Holly, for the report. It's just one or two points that I'd like to point out. On phase 1, the legal and procurement, it says on point, the second paragraph, the council have a social value policy. Could we have a report on the outcome of the social value? It says how much, it says that the councils have benefited from the social value investment. Would you be able to give us a more detailed report on that? That one. And
again, thank you. That Councillor Walton, that falls within the services I manage, and it is actually something scheduled, so we'd be happy to provide that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. There's also a spelling mistake on page 10 where it says shave has been delivered, but that's on building control. I commend the officers for successfully passing their assessment, which is really good for the Building Safety Act. So I think that's really good that they've all passed their assessment. Could you provide a little bit more information on the management and street scene of waste services? And it says procurement of food waste vehicles and caddies. I know it's we've discussed this at council, but could we have a little bit more information about how many have been ordered, or how it's going to work when it actually comes into that we have to deliver a separate food waste collection?
I can find that out for you, Councillor Walton. I think we recently had a report on that at
we did at
Cabinet, Council, which had that detail. So
Yes.
perhaps we can look at that and see if there's any further updates for you and recirculate.
That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a really positive report, actually. There's some really, really good stuff in there. But I just wondered if I'm a lover of numbers. So in the updates, I wonder, for an assurance point of view, whether we could actually see for each shared service how many what the audit recommendations are, or what that level of assurance that internal audit's currently given for those services, and maybe the numbers of outstanding audits that we've got. I think that would help from an assurance point of view as to how those services are working together, and to ensure that we're getting the benefits out that were considered before they were decided to go into shared services. But I had when you look at the democratic services one, it talks about the freedom of information percentage increase. That's really good, and I think that's really clear that you can see the defined benefits on it. But I just wonder if there's something in the report about how we're presenting that to maybe just define that even further. I know there's some in the performance tables, but I think the audit recommendations are one for me. Just in terms of where we've got the Appendix A on there, and I appreciate you haven't talked about that in detail, and you might do. I think it would be helpful to have a timeline, so where we have got 1 year to have the preceding year, so we can see that and if we've actually got the pre-shared service figures for those, so that we can see the benefits for some of those. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, some good points there. Certainly the audit one, maybe at our next meeting we can have a look at and look at that issue that's been raised. So thank you for that. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following on from your comments, there has recently been 2 audit reports that have gone to governance. One of them about payroll, and the other one about the help desk. And there are some quite interesting recommendations within those reports, and I'm just wondering how they have been incorporated into going forward with the shared services, because some of them, particularly on the payroll, where we've had situations where employees have been paid for 7 months and they weren't even employed by us. There's certainly some serious recommendations within here. So I wondered, could we find out whether they have been incorporated in some way into these reports? Because I think it's important that obviously you've got to take ownership of the situation now, and the recommendations that are going forward. And both of them are only adequate, particularly the help desk is just on limited adequate. So I think there is some important points that need to be addressed, and I'd like to know that they are being incorporated into this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and as we, Councillor Brown raised, these audit reports do need to be a part of this, without necessarily going into the specifics of what the audit report says. We do need some assurance in here that audit is taking place appropriately and is being responded to. So I think that's a perfectly valid point.
Through you, Chair, though, is that an issue at both councils, or is that localised to one council?
So the issues that were raised in the internal audits apply to both councils, because, as you say, they are part of a shared service arrangement. And just to confirm, following an internal audit, the service then has to produce an action plan that then is agreed by our internal officer corporate governance group. So they will be working towards that action plan, and therefore we can confirm in the report in future how far along they are in implementing those actions.
That's right, and I think what I'm trying to get at is that the action plan, while it says there is something going on, it doesn't seem to take into account the fact that there are 1 or 2 issues that need to be addressed, and therefore they need to be within that plan, so that we know that they are being addressed and that the ownership has been taken up by the particular department.
Thanks. Just to be clear from my point of view, though, as the chair, I don't want to duplicate the work that audit and governance may be doing in each of the individual councils. So as long as we're being assured that here that work is being carried out by councils in the audit and governance committee, I don't want us to start going over that again here if it's already been done in another committee, because I just don't think that's appropriate. But what we do need at shared services is that assurance that Councillor Brown asked for earlier. Okay, so with our thanks for that report, and there doesn't seem to be anybody else wants to raise any more points. Oh, sorry, okay. Well, we've not, obviously. Councillor Smith.
It's on page 15. It's about the staff turnover. And at the bottom line, it says that the turnover across other local authorities averages around 14%. And then when we get to page 29, exactly the same comment, that the annual turnover at other councils averages around 12%. So I'm assuming the 12 is the correct when I work the figures out, but I'm not sure. So I would like confirmation of which one is.
It's a typo. The 12 is the correct number.
Sorry,
It's a typo. The 12 is the correct number.
is the correct number. I thought as much. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Walton.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things about, on page 26, there's a chart of telephone answered times. And I noticed that they sort of have levelled out, but do we consider these figures consistently good enough at the moment, or can we do something to improve them? Because they seem to be fluctuating quite a lot. And it's just something that I was aware of, like managing customer demand. On page 17, the shared services access to a shared telephone system. Well, I had a recent experience telephoning a query, and I was treated as though I was a Chorley resident, not a South Ribble resident. Which has been rectified and a system has been put in, but it's just, are we happy that we consider these figures good enough for us?
Who decides whether they're good enough?
Customers.
I'm not saying it's me. No, I mean, what would be helpful in that table on page 26 is that we could see last March's figures, because there is a reference to the fact that March is a busy time for customer contact because people get the council tax bills, which makes sense to me, but we haven't got last March's numbers to see. So we don't know if it's got better or worse. It looks like it's got worse from February, but that's not a council tax period. So I think that table should include last March and some trending around some of the performance of where it went from and where it's gone to, because you're quite right, Karen. I think the question is, can it be better? It can always be better, and if it was 2 minutes we'd be annoyed, we'd be saying it should be 1 minute. So I think it's about what are our targets, and I know we have targets at Chorley. I'm sure you have targets at South Ribble as well, and therefore how is that trending against those targets? This isn't apparent from this report, so that will be also helpful. But I think particularly picking up the same time last year, because there is going to be peaks and troughs through the year because of the nature of what we do. I think, Chair, through you, I think the dashboard, we brought this in 3 meetings ago. This is like the second year of it, isn't it, I think? So I think there is some grounds to focus this. And if we are going to move into a brave new world of LGR at some point, this sort of information will be vitally important. And I think that's why it might be worth, I hate mentioning this, but some kind of workshop session between officers and members, or a selection of members of this group, might be helpful to get some more granular detail out of this dashboarding, because we got used to it now, but it's what do we want to use it for as opposed to just reporting on. I mean, some of this stuff is very boring because it doesn't change, but some of it's quite interesting and critical.
Yeah.
That was a compliment, by the way. Boring is good.
Yeah, I've just got one more point on page 13. It's about the development of a car parking strategy for Chorley and for South Ribble Borough Council. I'd like an update on the car parking strategy, because I live where there is a car park that has charges on it, and the impact that it's had on the local community it is quite astounding, really. And I just wondered if there was any information that you could provide about the income and what impact it has had on the local community, where charges have been changed or car parking regulations have changed.
Yeah, well, that strategy was developed 3 years ago, maybe, and certainly at South Ribble took longer to implement than we would have liked. I mean, as you know, when it was brought in it caused some consternation for a number of our residents in certain areas. But certainly in terms of actual complaints, I've just relinquished car parking as my responsibilities, and I had not had anything for 6 months, maybe more. Certainly, you'll recall we responded positively to the feedback that we got and made some tweaks to the regime. And certainly, as I say, in the last 6 months that it was in my portfolio, I didn't get any complaints that I can recall at all.
Through you, Chair, at Chorley, we're just going through a consultation on some car parking charges. So, and in the nicest possible way, Councillor Walton, I'm sure you don't want to be involved in that because we're getting a lot of positive and negative feedback. So we will take a listen to that consultation and we will take action based on that. So I don't think car parking strategy is pertinent to shared services, to be quite blunt with you. I think the fact that it's been implemented by our operational team is fine, but the outcomes and the impact of that is down to each individual council. So in my view, you should be given that information at South Ribble and do what you want with it. Surely we'll have the same discussion about our current proposals, particularly around Holgate and Burkacre, which I am sure you might be interested in, but is now, in the nice possible way, is now to do with you guys. So we'll sort that out separately. So, I think we recognise that the strategy has been done, but I think we need to take away the impacts separately.
And that's always the tension with this committee, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we've got shared staff doing strategies for each council and delivering the strategies.
It's not joined up.
But each council has its own strategy because it's its own council that wants to deliver different things in different places. Exactly. And we need to recognise that. Okay, Councillor Alty.
Thank you. It's just going back to the page 26 with the call waiting times. I'd noticed just reading it through that out of the 12 months that are reported, South Ribble's are worse on 11 out of the 12 months from the starting point to where we are today. And Chorley's, there are only 7 that are actually increasing, 4 decreasing, and 1 that's actually exactly the same. So I just wonder if there's a reason for the trend where South Ribble is doing worse, having longer waiting times than Chorley. Thanks.
What a good question. We can try.
Yeah. So I think on the average has been put in the top of that page, hasn't it? That there is about a 10-second, well, it's 9-second difference, isn't it? Average call time for South Ribble, it says 3 minutes 22, and for Chorley was 3 minutes 31. So actually, on average, it's slightly quicker at South Ribble. But we can get information from the contact centre, which was really detailed from individual caller, how long they were waiting for, how long they were on the phone for. So we can get a drill down if there's any particular months or particular aspects of that you were interested in. We do have that data much more detailed than this.
Thanks. And I just want to express a personal opinion on this. For me, it's not whether you wait 3 minutes and 20 seconds or whether you wait 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It's what outcome you get from the call. And I've shared in here before experiences I've had where I've waited 20 minutes to get through and then had brilliant service and been pleased to feed back to companies to say, it would have been nice if you answered your phone quicker, but actually you gave me a brilliant service, so thank you. That was the point I was making before about how do we decide whether too long is too long or whether do we get a good service out of it at the end? Yes, Alistair.
Can I just make a point, because obviously I've been here probably more long than most people, apart from Margaret probably, is that when we look back in 22-23 post-COVID, there was some very long waiting times and we had some long discussions here and in both councils about how we dealt with that. The position was worse at South Ribble at that point and more focus, I'd say, was put in South Ribble. So Chorley improved, and that's noted through 23-24, but South Ribble improved more. And then there's been a bit of a slide back to the norm, if you like, or to the pre-focus. Like most things, when you focus on something, after a while, it needs a re-injection of something to get it back down. I think I'm more interested in how you get back down to those numbers that we achieved when we had a particular focus on this area, because that should be what good looks like. And therefore, we have reverted a bit. And again, because South Ribble improved the most, it's then slid back more, whereas Chorley improved less and has then slid back less. And I think that's the sign of it, in a way, because we didn't have the improvements that were made. I find it frustrating that we have slid back a little bit, but I know we've had some separate data brought in at Chorley, because we did ask about this through our own internal reporting, to look at peak wait times during the time of day. And I think some of this average hides some good performance at certain times of day and bad performance at other points in day. And again, we've then tweaked some of that customer service work in Chorley to do that. I don't think that really provides all the detail, but I think that's the reason for it. But I think we need to reinvigorate that focus in that area. And it's something I'll be picking up with the cabinet member responsible and the director responsible.
Okay. Councillor Brown, you've just been prompted to ask a question.
It's just on that, further to that point, actually, thinking about customer satisfaction here, and I absolutely take your point about the calls being dealt with effectively. It might be in here, I might have missed it actually, but one of the ways of determining this around the times are abandoned call levels, because that's when people don't want to wait any further. So it would be helpful to see it in line with that, because that's your sort of sweet point, isn't it? If that goes up, we've got a problem. If it stays and the calls are dealt with effectively, then fine. So it might just help with that analysis.
Yeah, that's officers scribbling that down so we can report it in future. Yeah, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so some good questions that will influence, I think, the reporting in future, which is always a good outcome. So we'll move on to the next item, I think. Future developments.
Yeah. Thank you. So what this summarises is where we are now and where there are services which are not currently shared. So across customer and digital, we do not currently share the operational functions of street scene and waste. So those services are still separate for each council. They are delivered slightly differently, but they do manage under one shared management team. So they have one head of service and one set of managers that works across both councils. In communities and leisure, the public protection environmental health teams, again, there is one shared head of service, but the services that sit beneath that head of service are not shared, with the exception of pest control and animal welfare, which are shared. We've made previous decisions about that. And then in communities and housing, we've actually got two separate heads of service. So we've got a head of service for communities and housing at Chorley, a head of service for communities and housing at South Ribble, but they report into one shared director. So the teams themselves are not shared, although they do work very closely together. And in property and planning, we have got two separate heads of service again. However, we do share building control, and obviously we also are delivering a Central Lancashire local plan across both councils in addition to Preston. And then in parks and open spaces, this is a service that we only have at South Ribble. So we have a head of parks and open spaces at South Ribble. It isn't a service that we have as a separate function at Chorley, because it actually sits within the spatial planning function at Chorley. Again, at South Ribble, we don't have a separate spatial planning function, and that is incorporated in part between parks and open spaces and within the main planning team. So what's presented in this report are sort of three main options, which is we can continue to look at opportunities, so sort of continue to find chances to develop shared services, and that may well be on a more formal footing, so a commitment made that we are going to continue a further programme like we did through phases 1, 2 and 3, where we made a commitment in advance to share specific services and then we rolled those out. Or we could continue to do it on an opportunistic basis, which is the more recent services like building control we've done because there were reasons for us to do that. We could pause the expansion of sharing services in the context that if local government reorganisation happens, then actually we're going to have to do that activity after local government reorganisation. It may well feel like it's a poor use of time to do that now if we're going to have to do it anyway in sort of 2027, 2028 onwards. or we can, in I suppose combination of these, decide that we're actually going to put our focus into local government reorganisation. So that is where we're going to think about where we will only share opportunities where that is actually going to really help the organisations in the context of organisation on a sort of Lancashire footing. So that was just then open for discussion, please, Chair.
Discuss.
Well, I'll go first.
Alistair.
Having spent the afternoon at the CCA Combined Authority meeting, followed by a discussion with the 5 leaders who were there, mainly to ascertain where the County Council is, given the recent change of control at County Council, and in advance of a district leaders meeting on Thursday, which you were at, Chair, and a Lancashire leaders meeting next Thursday. You're loving this, aren't you? Wonder where my days go. We're faced at the moment with putting a proposal forward for Lancashire by November, which is 5 months away, which is not long in the local government world, in my view, and it's a lot shorter time than our officers certainly want to be able to put that forward. So I don't think we have the headspace and the bandwidth to do anything on shared arrangements at this point in time, unless a service is in absolute crisis and needs sorting out as an answer. And you know, I'm not aware of any that are. I know there are some problems in certain departments, mainly around staffing, because that's a symptom of some of these staffing issues, but that's a feature from, and we're doing a lot of things we possibly can to retain staff and recruit staff, and we've just had a very good commendation around our retention and recruitment at Chorley from an external review, so I don't think we're missing any tricks. I think it's just the nature of the organised, you know, the sector, if you like, at the moment, but I think we need to get to November and then see where we are in the new year around what's happening. There is a divergence of views across Lancashire at the moment. You know, we would like to be aligned between ourselves and our near neighbours to where everybody is, and I think we have a level of alignment at the moment. But we need to see where the rest of Lancashire is, and therefore, I think back to what you just said, Holly, was the resources are better spent doing that and helping work up a plan for Lancashire that keeps Chorley and South Ribble at the forefront of where they want to be, than particularly focusing on internal matters. I also said before the meeting, when I was chatting with Holly, to say I'd been to the CCA meeting and what have you, I do think we as politicians and our officers have learned a lot by doing shared services, you know, for the good and for bad, about having to work with others. I think that will be a real shock to large parts of Lancashire in the coming months and years if they are going down an LGR route, and therefore we are already better placed than many to deal with that, just through our experiences and learning to coexist with other people and work with other people. And therefore I think the more we can keep that going but on a wider footprint, the better.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that I discussed this briefly with my Labour Cabinet colleagues. We're at exactly the same view. We really don't see any capacity within the teams who are going to be asked to do a lot of work over the coming months, to ask them to be looking at shared services as well. I just echo the comment you make about how our experience of shared services over a number of years now will put us in good stead, because I know I raised the potential for shared services across the new unitaries, and with some politicians it just caused some scratching of heads, and they clearly didn't understand the concept, never mind what it might mean. But so with us both having expressed a view of unanimity for once, does anybody else want to add anything? Councillor Smith.
I tend to agree with you. I think that at this time it would be much better to pause and just take stock. We don't know what's in the future. Everything's in a state of flux at this moment in time, and our officers have got a lot on to get these things at least aligned up in some way that will make a little bit of sense. And also it will give the shared services, particularly the new ones, that chance to settle a bit more, and they can find their feet a bit better. I mean, we've had tremendous success with one or two of them, but I think pest control particularly has, all right, it was opportunistic, but it was there. And I do feel, though, that if there is that little opportunity that won't cause too much aggravation, then maybe we should go with it. But in the main, I would suggest a pause would be much better until we can find out where we are all going to end up in the next 12 to 18 to 2 years. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I would agree also with that same caveat, unless there are a savings opportunity or an improvement opportunity, say through staff turnover, etc., and it's a no-brainer, then I think we need to allow services to consider that. I do think this actually allows an opportunity for the current services to really consolidate the benefits of what they've been doing and it would allow us time to work on the dashboard that we've previously talked about, because when we're looking at other areas that are going to be doing this and they're scratching their heads, we could actually be really demonstrating the benefits and really cementing that. So I think it actually puts us in a really good place to sort of show that, because people will be, terrified and really concerned about the future, but actually there are some benefits that we can demonstrate. I think this allows us an opportunity to do that.
Councillor Walton.
Yes, thank you. I agree that this is an opportunity for us to consolidate, and it says in the report on that there could be an increased risk of change fatigue impacting on staff capacity, wellbeing and productivity. We don't want at this moment in time to put any extra stress on our staff who, as we all don't know what's going to happen in the future. And so I think it's best if we pause at this particular moment in time, unless, like Councillor Smith has said, there is a real cause for one of the services to be brought into shared services so that the service improves and the staff and all of us feel the benefit.
Yeah.
And just on what other people said, I think there are two other points to make. One is that with a lot of this reorganisation discussion, a lot of staff are quite sort of disrupted by it and are thinking about their own futures. I think in Chorley South Ribble, because our staff have been through this kind of a change and they're constantly reassured by both leaderships and both administrations that change can be managed and still look after staff, and it's not a threat, it's an opportunity. I'm attended, I think, previously with other leaders in Chorley South Ribble, the union meetings, and the unions are quite not relaxed, but understanding that there is opportunity as well as a problem where we stay in other parts of Lancashire. So I think we need to keep that message going. This is a chance to do things on a bigger footprint and effect change for the better, not just as a threat. And I think that's a chance that we can use through this process. And then the other bit is that we do need to make sure in all this internal navel gazing about reorganisation that we don't forget that we're here to serve the residents. And if we keep serving the residents, there is plenty of work to be doing. Keep doing that, as others have mentioned. So the one thing is keep doing the day job and don't get distracted by what might happen. And also what might happen shouldn't be a problem for you. If you're the member of our staff or councils or what have you, it's an opportunity to do things differently. And I think if you go into something with a confidence because of that, then you will get a better outcome than if you go in fearful of this and fearful of that and getting distracted by this might happen or that might happen. And therefore, I think that's a grounds just to, while we weigh up the opportunities, is to concentrate as well on keep doing the day job, because that's critical.
Councillor Alty.
Yeah, it's just a comment really that because of the historical work done over the last few years, getting to where we are today, we have some lived experience and we have some data that supports pros and cons. And I think it will be inevitably valuable to all the other councils that are having to merge or feel like they should merge. And actually we've got something that a lot don't have. So it is opportunistic on its own, just that we've done what we've done. But I think we'll reap some harvest from this. Thanks.
Great. I think we've reached a consensus then that at this stage we don't go searching actively for any further opportunities for shared services. But that doesn't mean to say should an opportunity arise, we wouldn't want that to be pursued. But we keep doing the day job because who knows what change may or may not come and when it may or may not happen. So it's really important that we focus on doing what we do best for our residents. That a clear enough steer for the officers at this stage? Good stuff. Okay, there don't seem to be any other agenda items. Doesn't mention the date of the next meeting. Anybody advise? Doesn't mention on the agenda. I'm sure it's in all our diaries and as a red letter day.
Is it the Christmas meeting, Coral?
13th of January.
They are. Oh.
New Year's meeting.
13th of January. So I won't expect a card off any of you because it'll be too late. It will just be in that gap where we're still saying Happy New Year to people. I reckon about the 15th, the 17th of January, stop saying it. But in the meantime, can I wish you all a Merry Christmas? And the committee will reconvene in January. But thank you for your attendance and good humour and your contribution.